She painted women screaming, trying in vain to escape the ideological ties, repressing them for lifelong. It is hard to draw your whining soul, and much harder to feel alienation in your motherland. I remember how hard life was. I was 10 back then, when the Iran-Iraq war started. After that, and for so long, tragedies continued without an end. I grew up in Kirkuk, then Baghdad, and in the middle of conflicts and war, I was painting. That is how I grew up. I graduated from the art faculty in Baghdad in 2000. I worked as an art tutor. I participated in various exhibitions between 1995 and 2005. And then I became the head of Digital Association for Arts between 2005 and 2010. After that, life had driven me to Gothenburg in Sweden, the city that opened its arms to me and where I experienced new artistic experiments. I painted the cold and nature. Still, I was unable to get lost into the forest there, and so I resumed my old subject, the human. These flowing colors are melting into my blood and into my cells. They are my face, the only means I use to narrate the human emotions, the stories of the miserable, their screams awaited by crows, and other stories where from ashes rises my favorite bird, the phoenix. Traveling along through my paintings where death and crowing are merged in a land where only live safety and love. Traveling here.
Dramatic impressions in Ronak Azeez's paintings. This rhythm would be driving us towards the alienation screams, towards the casualties of love and war. Stories of this place did their magic, from Kirkuk and Baghdad to Gothenburg. Whenever she paints, her personages stick to the memory as praise, wrapped in shroud coffins and contemplations. Here, women soothe the tragic stories while the smell of death and burnt-slipped life fills the noses. Here, seats like packs of sand, the living deads and the lovers, resorting to the spirits of the countryside and caves, sleeping on the floor, holding on skies that overlook nothing, waiting as the time passes by the soil eats them. Their bodies become ancient, petrified and rusty fossils. Then the personages in the painting fall into the course of seasons, summer, autumn, and winter. There is nothing over here. It seems that this cold is lasting, a cold filled with loneliness, hovering into the woods, sticking to the trunk of the trees we rest under. Loneliness only cold colors would soften, colors moving as light as water, filling the thirsty screams, deaden the noise of this suppression and this inner deviation. However, for other colors, it is the opposite. The yellow in here is digging the virgin's chest, exploding these areas of sorrow, and the black is similar to a river looking only for relief. Disappointment decay inside her soul. Her fingers were begging for help, trying to hold on to life. However, absence awaited her death. She screams, and the light of truth shine and strengthen the emptiness into her similar eyes, turning into spirits awaiting for something, for another goodbye. While waiting, inside the fear, inside the brutal nonsense, the morphology changes, and the skull's noises in some of her paintings turn into a bird of peace, and love diving into the sorrow, holding on the head, trying to fly towards a divine joy, while a calm music interferes and dances lightly along with this release. I am feeling dizzy. Tragedies and consolations are slipping along with the blue and the white to form whirlwinds fluid as a water source, easing the personage's disorder. Fish and birds deeping into the color clouds. The light here is messy in its way to break into the curves, into the personages and into the things. Then it goes back to dive into the moments when the countrysiders are filled with loss. Supporting their heads in between the herbs, wheat, and mothers' backs, bringing up their ways of living and the details of their exhausted selves. A fair light, they were falling under a hail of bullets. Along these opposites sharpens starts the songs of our intimate unity. Unity, the presence of the tragic awareness we are experiencing, its painful noise from time to time. Unity, Ronak expresses it in her painting, as if it is our only power to face the silliness of communism, pushing us to psychological exile, controlling our bodies, defigurating us, pulling off our senses and emotions, making them struggle, hallucinate, fight, adore, scream, think, transcend the boundaries of space, washing up with tears and memories of bleak evenings. Then we perform. We perform to meet with our dearest, to mock the world and the madness of modernness. Lips kisses for lovers to dream, escaping accumulations that ruin their bodies. They dive into dissonance and inner chaos, heading necessarily to the next title. Dissection of alienation within Ronak's paintings. Alienation, that physical inability to own the place one has to own, feeling dependence on another person or regime. It has always been for humans, the feeling of losing freedom, feeling despair, turning into things and splitting from their environment. All of our alienation has a story, complicated and tangled, worse close that. We do not perceive the mood of the personages drawn by Ronak, because in the majority of her paintings, there is a sensitive, symbolic and suggestive intensity, making us hear the whisper of these bodies. We try to find the reason behind these mysterious faces, while she figured it out into simple symbols, such as guns, skulls alienated like shaman totems, legs melting to get at some point, human revolutions, falling of masses and corpses, amputated and tied bodies, women muzzled buried under tree roots shapes like she died alive and so silent. Countryside's life nostalgic paintings, painting where colleges and thick lines show the isolation of man and his failure to join modernism. All of these desires and symbols shows resistance against a certain power over the individual, a rude one which only consider only its organization, and the individual within is simply dependent. A part of alienation appears there across the symbols of the paintings we have seen, where the human had control over his thinking, not his deeds. War makes you surrender to some feelings. Your love grows towards some things, and your hates towards others. You might do what you hate and still be unable to do what you love. Give me a kiss. I cannot. When pain between them became bigger than the grace of love. Time is running out, and her personage's alienation forms another spiritual life. Sitting alone means you are making a song, one song to figure out where you get now. Then this alienation grows as long as these personages are coexisting their cultures. Their soul fails to recognize itself due to their multiple selves, their old happy sad countryside, and their new sad happy self. The alienation turns from a philosophic matter to a historic one, with the assets spilling over society, social and economic relationships. You cannot eat or drink in bliss if bombs are exploding over your house, making you lose your dearest ones. Is this what the spiral feels? Wheat and hands holding worried heads are explaining? Perhaps. I'm homeless. Oh, people. After the refuge or home collapsed, it turned from a geometric concept to a psychological exile in Ronak paintings, and all those personages are now heading towards illusion, individuals and groups with a hazy future. Another time, alienation became a social aspect, like funerals and revolutions feeding on the same sadness, and the individuals turned into a mass driven by legs towards one direction and one reaction, denial, while others realize that the will to change is not sufficient to make the change. Especially in the totalitarian societies, the legs begin to change their directions from the outside to the inside, toward the soul. May this idea explain the many times one personage appears walking alone through the maze inside the painting. Another time, Social loneliness becomes individual loneliness, a loneliness of the one who sits and thinks, that panics, cries, or meditates. Loneliness surrounding the isolated, nestling him, and love due to the rude life becomes a mechanism or a drug providing life for humans. They feel it less while sensing more loss. I am lonely, O mother. This is when lovers begin to divide their living dead reality due to the surviving instincts. Nothingness between them becomes similar to a twin in a mirror with a temporal break of quiet light dividing them. The noise is back again. The one face is full of vibration. I heeded something at a psychological level. The one body becomes close to alienated or repulsed bodies surrounded by thick lines, close and twisted as life itself. You think you are happy, but it is your wrong conscience. You guess you are free while you are stuck into your own skin. You see the ties choking you, but you ignore who did that to you, which is proof of how precise and efficient these ties are. Personages which brush strokes intense their raving and painting material that choke the yellow, the black and the fire red, colors which move like a wave, resigning the absurdity of existence, making the viewer feel that the vastness and freedom around us are restricted only by human movement. This harmony and flexibility with our contradictions allowed ronak to manipulate the alternations of rhythm within the body, so it emerged as clear blocks attracting our attention in the composition of the painting. Then, attention was repeatedly driven to the alienation of her characters under various forms by enlarging their morphological sizes and darkening some parts of their body, such as the eyes, increasing the numbers of characters within the painting, while giving it a nightmarish hypnotic character, full of the same emotional intensity, which increases with the large number of twists and technical additions to form a mass that rises bodies from their surroundings, thus nullifying many of the physical components of the place and introducing us through that into a fantastic, mystical world.